Hello and welcome back to the chess website. Today we're going to be talking about some more intermediate chess traps. So some traps that are a little bit more complicated or might be seen a little bit more at the intermediate level. So to start, we're going to show the Cambridge Springs traps. So that starts with d4 and then d5. You reach a Queen's Gambit declined structure, and after both sides bring their knights out, White will sometimes play bishop g5 here, pinning this knight, and black can play this move, knight b to d7, which blocks the queen's protection of this d5 pawn, but this is actually not a pawn that you can take. So after pawn takes, it seems like knight takes d5 works because this knight is pinned to the queen. However, black is going to play a stunning knight takes d5 anyway, because after this move, you're attacking this bishop here, so they have to pretty much take your own queen. And we have a plan to play bishop to b4 check, and there's just no good way to defend this check. There's no way to block it. The king can't move. The only legal move in the position is to play queen to d2, and that just gives up the queen. We could just recapture this bishop because this queen isn't going anywhere, and black is going to be up a piece when the dust settles. So this is the first trap in the Cambridge Springs. The second one would be after, instead of trying to take on d5, if white does something a little bit more solid like e3, black can play c6, supporting this d5 pawn. And after knight f3, they play queen to a5. And this has a little bit of a idea of pinning this knight, but also bringing this knight to e4. And secretly, this queen can be very devilish and that it can attack this bishop all the way over here. So the main line is for white to play knight to d2 to break this pin, to stop knight to e4 in its tracks. And in response to this, black can just take on c4. And a lot of times, white will just take back. And this is a huge blunder. They just lose a piece just like that because this knight was defending g5 and moved away. And once it moved away to d2, this bishop's unprotected. So all black has to do is unleash an attacker on that bishop, and that's a free piece. So this can be a little way to trick your friends in the Cambridge Springs. The next one I want to show is the Fedorowicz um, trap, which happens in the Budapest, which is starts like this. This is a gambit from black side. It's a little bit risky, but there are some ways it can pay off very quickly. So after knight to f3, black is going to sacrifice another pawn by playing d6. So white takes, black takes back. Black's going to play for very fast development. And here, if white plays inaccurately and plays a slow move like g3, trying to develop like this allows for the devastating knight takes f2, drawing the king away from that queen. Now that this queen is unprotected, we play bishop takes g3 check, and we are going to win the queen on the next turn. So very devastating tactic in the Fedorowicz trap. The next trap I want to show you comes out of d4, d5, c4, and then here black is going to play the Albin Counter Gambit, which is e5. So instead of dealing with the tension in the center, black creates more tension. And now there's all sorts of captures that can happen, but d takes e5 is the most common move, and black is going to push their d pawn to d4 now. And after a move like e3, trying to undermine this far advanced pawn that black has, black is going to throw in this bishop to b4 check. If they just took on e3, that wouldn't cause any problems because white would just take back with the bishop. Um, so after bishop b4 check, white has to deal with this check. They can't bring a knight to c3 because the pawn covers that square. So they have to bring a piece to d2. And once they do, you have d takes e3, which is a very nice move since white doesn't really have a good way of dealing with it. If they take this way, their pawns are going to be shattered in a very bad shape, and black is probably going to be able to mop them up in the next few moves. And then if they take this bishop on b4, we can play e takes f2 check. We've seen this pattern before, and we'll see it again. This queen is seeing our queen, and we're trying to distract the king away from it so we can just win it for free. But if white plays king to e2, they stay protecting this queen. And for the moment, white is kind of holding on. But this last move really drives the nail in the coffin. If we played a move like bishop g4 check, white would be able to play knight to f3, and they would actually be quite fine. But here, in this position, we have the devastating under promotion, promoting our pawn to a knight on the 7th move. Almost all of our moves have been pawn moves. Getting this pawn all the way here, it's just crazy to under promote to a knight. So we do this because it comes with check and we can get rid of that knight. So once white takes back, we have bishop g4 and there's no way of blocking it anymore. And we're just going to win a free queen after something like this. So very devastating tactic in the Albin Counter Gambit. Another similar gambit that black can play against d4 is e5. This is called the Englund Gambit. And after this, white takes, and then black pressures the center, pressures this weak pawn on e5, so white tries to defend it. Then queen to e7 happens. Now bishop f4. Again, white is trying to defend that pawn. And black plays queen b4 check. So this is forking the king and the bishop. So if a move like knight c3, queen takes f4 would be a little dangerous. So instead of that, white tries to save the bishop and deal with the check at the same time. And after queen takes b2, bishop c3 looks like it holds everything together. It defends that rook on a1 and it attacks the queen. But black has the really nice move, bishop to b4. And what this does is it pins this bishop, so there's no more ideas of taking the queen or protecting the rook. It just doesn't work. And after a move like queen d2, we can take on c3, and if they take with a knight, we're just going to take this rook. And if they take with the queen, we slide our queen back to c1 behind the enemy defenses and deliver a checkmate in 8 moves. So very nasty checkmate. There's just no way to deal with it. There's no way to block it, and the king cannot move. So those were some ways to deal with d4, some weird counter gambits that black can play. Now I'm going to show you some gambits with e4. So after e4, e5, the main move is knight to f3, knight c6. This is how the game normally goes, bishop c4. And here, black can play knight to d4. And this is called the Blackburne Shilling Gambit. So here, it's very, very tempting for white to take on e5 because this knight was protecting e5 and now it's not. This is actually a big mistake already. White's best move is just to take on d4. But taking on e5 is a big mistake because it allows queen to g5, which attacks the knight and this pawn on g2. But white's probably thinking, okay, but I can save my knight and I can fork your queen and rook. But our idea comes first. We play queen takes g2, not only threatening the rook, but threatening the rook with check. This is something that white has to deal with right away. They have to play rook to f1. And after this move, we're going to play queen takes e4 check, eyeing that king down the e-file. And there's just no good way to defend this. They play queen e2. Well, that's a free queen. Thank you very much. And if they play bishop to e2 instead, knight to f3 is a beautiful finish to the game. Checkmate in 7 moves. So very nasty finish to the game. One other e4, e5 opening trap I wanted to show you is after knight to c3. This is called the Vienna game. knight's f6, f4 can be played. And if black takes this pawn, white's going to push it, and this knight just doesn't have a good square to go to. The knight covers these two squares, and the queen covers these two squares. So black's best move is just to bring that knight back to its starting square. And we're going to play knight's f3, d6, d4. So white just has a huge spatial advantage, very, very comfortable position. And after white takes on e5, we don't even have to take back. We can just prioritize our development by playing bishop b5 check, and if c6, just bring that bishop back to c4. E takes d4, castles, and this is kind of the trap and the same pattern that we've seen time and time again. If white takes on c3, we have the devastating bishop takes f7 check, and if the king moves, that's a free queen. So if the king goes to e7 instead, we still have to find a way to distract the king so it's no longer protecting the queen on d8. So we do that by playing rook e1 check, and this forces the issue with black. And now black either has to give up a lot of material or just play king f7, where we're going to take on d8 and be winning the game. So these were 7 intermediate deadly chess traps. Stay tuned for more content to beat your friends very quickly.